All right, guys, Joseph Percher here. I'm going to be updating my YouTube more frequently now. I've said this a handful of times, and I haven't always been consistent with it, but coming out of a long contest prep, I have some energy back, and I want to dive back into giving out free information and helping people. And so I'm going to be doing some Q&As, possibly doing more podcasts on my own, but we'll get to that later. So this Q&A is going to be surrounded by my contest prep. And for anybody watching that wasn't familiar, I started contest prep in October of 2023. I competed in April of 2024, continued contest prep, and then just competed again here in Tampa at the beginning of August. So, going to be answering questions about that. Firstly, I had someone ask, what are the plans moving forward with the podcast? I was doing Thinking Man's podcast on the Muscle Media Network with Tommy Styles, and there are no plans for it moving forward. So that podcast is no more. And like I said, on this channel, I'm going to be looking to create my own podcast and have some different guests. I have some different guys lined up that I think you guys would enjoy hearing from. So, yeah, that's that. Let's get that out of the way. Keep your eyes peeled for my social media, J Perch on Instagram. That's where I'll be promoting anything podcast-wise. One of the questions that I got asked here about the long prep was, how was your mindset for the first part of prep compared to the second? To be honest, starting in October and getting ready for the first show in April, I had been away from the stage for so long that looking back, I honestly took certain efforts and things that I had always done in contest prep kind of for granted, and I didn't make a consistent effort to go the extra mile with everything. So there were certain things I didn't do direct glute training. I preach this big time, and it does make such a difference. But I didn't really track my steps. I kind of thought I was just, I could get away without doing it because I have all this information. And that was a huge mistake. So not tracking my steps just led to me having to do more difficult machine cardio. I worked with Justin Harris for that part of prep, and he has guys do HIIT or intervals. If you want to say that it's not true HIIT, you're doing intervals on the Stairmaster. And so not tracking steps, I just had to keep doing more and more of it, which never leads to a good look. So a big difference from the show in April, or the prep for the show in April, to the one just recently in August, was that I was diligent the second time around about training my glutes directly, doing different touch-up exercises when I would go in for fasted cardio. I was on top of my ab training and vacuums a lot more than I was for the first time around. There was just a lot of things from being away from the stage for so long, like I said, that I just took for granted or didn't put the effort into, and it showed. My showing in April, or my look, was incredibly disappointed. I was devastated with how I looked because I worked my ass off and I was exhausted, and it looked like I was still fucking 6 weeks out, really. So from that point, the process working with Justin Harris, it was clear that it just didn't work because I followed everything exactly what he said, and it was probably the least conditioned look that I've ever brought to the stage, other than my first ever show. And in that instance, it was my first show. I coached myself. This was before social media, so I didn't even really know what the standards were for competitive conditioning. So for my showing in April, 10 years in, full-time coach, business owner, to look as off as I did, like I said, it was just devastating. So quickly after that, I linked up with Justin Compton, who I know is someone that doesn't do cheat meals. He doesn't do, insulin. He's not doing some of these exotic, out of the box things. It's real deal bodybuilding. It's a set meal plan. It's a set amount of cardio on a specific machine. We were checking in every three to 4 days for most of the prep, and then it was daily at the end. So anyway, long story short, I think looking back mindset wise, in the first part of the prep was way too focused on the end result. Like I started prep, and instead of just embracing each part of the journey and enjoying the changes that happen, I was just very negative and kind of miserable about the whole process. And I think part of that was because I knew I was putting in the work, and the look didn't correlate with how much effort I was putting into it. And so as the prep went along, I just was more stressed and frustrated because, again, I was like exhausted and then just not looking right. So, and then so the second prep round, getting with Justin Compton, I was determined to be more all in on the process. I did post-workout posing every single day after training. I was just all in and went back to doing every little thing that I could to be better on a daily basis. And so I think a big part of that too was the support that I have from my girlfriend Kelsey, and she just really stepped up and made it so that some of the things around the house, laundry, dishes, even cooking for me, she would do all of these things, no questions asked, just so that I could be the best that I could and focus solely on bodybuilding. And then a big part of that too is that we moved in together after my first show. So living with her, having that support every day, just having a best friend to be able to talk to, or even when you're too exhausted to talk, just having somebody there that understands, and you can just sit there in silence together. That was a big thing. And then so we moved in together, and then we moved separately from New Jersey down to Tampa. And so that first prep starting in October, I prepped all through the winter, and it's snowing and it's freezing and miserable. I've done it so many times, and then that was part of the catalyst to moving to Tampa was just, the weather. I got down here, and every part of the prep just seemed easier or more enjoyable. Another part of that is having MI40 as your home gym. The first part of prep, I'm training at local gyms, retro fitness. The vibe sucks. The people in there suck. And so that's on me to bring my own energy. And of course I can. But then when you get into a gym like MI40, that's a private gym, predominantly competitors and pros that are in there, the vibe and the mindset were just way different. So how long was I in prep for? Like I said, I started in October. What good and bad did it bring to your physique well-being? So I think from the long off season that I took, that first show was kind of doomed just because I stayed heavy for so long, stayed out of shape for so long. So that original, 16-week diet was just not enough to get all the fat off. So dieting and being a competitive prep bodybuilder for as long as I was, that played a big role in how gnarly my conditioning was in Tampa, the second show around. So that did me a lot of good. I do think, inevitably being in a deficit, high cardio output, all of that stuff for as long as I was, I do think there was probably some tissue loss, or maybe not muscle, but just the look and the fullness by the end. Like I had put on quite a bit of new size on my arms, and by the time I got to Tampa, I think they had just faded a little bit. and you're talking about the better part of 10 months with subpar training compared to what it is in the off season. Any of you guys that have competed and been in actual shape know that at the end, and regardless of at the end or the timing, really just when you start getting in shape, your training sucks compared to what it is in the off season. So some good and some bad that came with such a long diet, but also I think it set me up now. I was lean for so long to really take advantage of a rebound. So I'm going to talk about that in a different video, but what was different in your prep for the first show compared to the second show? In terms of the X's and O's of bodybuilding, I will say this: with Justin Harris for the first show, I was on way more drugs, way more injectables, way more orals. I don't know if that was causing stress and preventing the body from wanting to drop the body fat, or what the case was, but I was on way less with Compton and looked way better. So I did end up doing more cardio with Compton. I was up to 2 hours a day for the final 4 or 5 weeks. I was on less food with Compton. I was on 50 grams of carbs per day. That was for the final 4 or 5 weeks as well. But it yielded the results. So like for the show in April, at some point or another, I was doing either 90 minutes or 2 hours, eating very low food, eating no fats, maybe 20 to 50 grams of carbs per day. But how do I say this? It just wasn't, it wasn't enough. So, knowing that I just needed to be peeled and redeem myself from a conditioning standpoint, I had no problem doing 2 hours a day of cardio, 50 grams of carbs. I remember hearing a video with Chris Aceto where he talked about Sean Roden doing 2 hours of cardio a day and 50 grams of carbs for the Olympia prep that he won. And that's somebody that was probably 240 pounds on stage, Mr. Olympia. So, who am I as a no-name amateur to complain about 2 hours of cardio or 50 grams of carbs when the best in the world did the exact same thing? So, I think being with Compton and having a shorter off season compared to that 3-year off season I did, staying with Compton, keeping it tighter, I would expect our next prep next year, I'll be in a better spot to where I don't necessarily have to do quite as much, but whatever it is, it is. Every prep is different. And, as I showed Compton this past prep, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get in shape. So, but yeah, I think the biggest difference of all the variables is just I just took way less drugs with Compton and looked better. So, take that as you will. At what point during prep did you start feeling the prep symptoms? Was it gradual? Was it fast? So like I said, I started in October, and looking back, I probably should have known that something was up because I didn't start to struggle, feel hungry, feel tired on the stairs, none of that, really until like the first week of February. And at that point, I'm already 8 weeks out. Which was weird for me and kind of a red flag, because for me, in past preps, I usually will have to start at 20 weeks out just to make sure I'm in top condition. And so we didn't start as far out as I wanted to. We only started at 16 weeks out. And, even the other preps that I've started at 20 weeks out, I'm always starving and tired pretty early on. But then that's how I know I'm looking right and that the body's responding. So that first part of prep when, I'm still like forcing food, even though it wasn't a lot of food, that was an issue. But then getting with Getting with Compton, we had a couple weeks in between where I was able to bring my food up and training was really good. But in terms of feeling like the prep fatigue, it started in, like I said, like early February, and I just lived in that, like total mental and physical exhaustion, hunger, food focus, and like a complete loss of personality from February until now. So basically 6 months living like that. At what point did you notice the biggest physical changes in your look this prep? I would say I looked really good about 4 weeks out from Tampa. And then by the time I got to 2 weeks out, I went out to Port St. Lucie to see Justin in person, Justin Compton. And at that point, he was pretty satisfied that I was ready at that point. So that 4 week out to 2 week out, that was when he had put in the 2 hours of cardio, the low food, and things just changed really fast. So last one for this video, guys. What is something that you have learned and will take with you next time you prep? Not to take for granted how big of a difference all the little extras, like I talked about, how far they can bring you. I won't look to the end result as much, and more so just enjoy the process, sink myself into the process, so to speak. There's little X's and O things. I'll always make sure to stay up on my steps next time. I think I need to start practicing posing sooner in the prep. And to be honest, I've knocked it before, but I think just I'm getting to like a level where I can't afford the weak link in the chain to be my posing. So I'll probably work with a posing coach next time around. So yeah, in terms of both shows and the recap of my season, I'm very, very pleased and grateful to Compton for the way that the second prep looked. I was able to redeem myself conditioning wise, bring this current physique that had quite a bit of added muscle, plus the conditioning that I've always brought, and even better. This was the best conditioning I was ever in. So, I originally wanted to qualify and go to North Americans to compete, and that wasn't in the cards for this year. Getting off stage and prejudging for Tampa, I was, about 215 pounds, and I wasn't a clear winner after prejudging. So I knew right then and there, like, I don't belong going to North Americans yet until I am someone that can show up at a show, at a regional or local show, and win that without any questions, and then go be a contender at a national level. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to nail this rebound and off season with Compton. I'm going to look to I'm expecting to put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle and be back at North Americans next year, either at the very top of the heavyweight class, bodyweight wise, or even spilled over into the super heavyweight. We're just going to go based on my look, but I'm expecting to grow so much that I'm going to be right on the cusp. So, yeah, those are my plans. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, listening to it, whatever, comment below. I'm going to be doing mostly Q&As here on out. So let me know what you want to hear or see. And until next time, guys, I'm out.